Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello and welcome back.
So here we see another hazmat train crashes and catches fire in Iowa just 24 hours after Minnesota derailment. We had talked about how there's going to be events that will look perhaps, let's say, organic. Perhaps organic, but they're not organic. They're full of artificial flavoring, to say the least. This is what the guides have gotten to us, and they're not really happy with our personal situation as we've been held in limbo in a crazy manner ourselves for week after week after week. While we know, we're going to have to be self-sufficient very soon, very soon. Here you see a freight train carrying fertilizers derailed in northwestern Iowa, triggering a partial evacuation of a nearby community. And Hazardous material team response, second such incident in the U.S. in 24 hours. The derailment happened around 2 p.m. Sunday on the outskirts of Sibley, a town of 2,700 residents, northwestern Iowa on the border with Minnesota. No injuries reported, but the town received evacuation orders over a hazmat train derailment and fire, as first responders sealed off the area within 5 miles of the crash. The train was carrying fertilizer. I wonder, there is ammonium nitrate. That makes me think of Oklahoma City, does it not? And various chemicals used in its production, as we see there. Dozens of cars piled one on top of the other, some on fire, large cloud of black smoke above. Could be seen in photos and videos. There's video there as well. Now, if this was it, this is enough to get you saying, very, very curious. They actually told people like which windows to open, which ones not, in case there was a blast that was going to be spewing stuff. Then we see here, this hazmat team responds to hydrochloric acid leak after 50-car train derails in Albert Lea, Minnesota. That was the other incident there. But you want to share?
Well, I was just looking at the first incident we were looking at. It was carrying fertilizer, and that would make it very difficult for people to start making their own gardens if there was a shortage in fertilizer.
Yeah, exactly. So that plus the potential for, we know those things are very, very, those chemicals, they're very explosive, very volatile, as we said, OKC, Oklahoma City, think Oklahoma City, right? So second such incident, 24 hours, and third in less than a week in the U.S. and also in the central U.S. and not too far away from there. So around 1:30 p.m. Saturday, a Union Pacific train crashed about 120 miles away, just across the border in Minnesota. That caused a hazardous material team response, hazmat, to hydrochloric acid. And here there's videos. And on May 11th, yet another train derailed 450 miles away in central Illinois. Now, hazmat teams there did not detect chemical leaks at the time. Causes of the derailment have yet to be revealed. As you see another one. Now, is that nothing to see here? These are all just coinky-dinkle?
Right. Well, not these days. It's not a nothing to see here. So when I asked, who was behind all this, it's that place, that thing that starts with an I
and ends with an I.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that group. Think about ill, you, men, ATI.
Yeah.
See if we'll see if the AI can figure that part of it out.
We'll see if we get a little tag on that.
So as we've been saying, we've been getting that this is really a time to prepare for more major events and just being locked down in place with perhaps not being able to get anything, perhaps not even having services. Prepare for that. Always prepare for the worst. Always put the positive vibes out that these things can be averted, timelines can be shifted. But we know there is Well, there are agendas underway, and we've talked about them, and we've talked about it. Isn't it interesting that 2021, basically got updated to 2030, and as we've said, 2030, we feel will be the time when they start to lose their grip, really lose their grip. So it all makes perfect sense. Things are escalating in 2021, and by 2030, we should see a de-escalation, but it's going to be a heck of a roller coaster ride, guys, with all the artificial flavoring we've seen around. Of course, there are some that might say, well, I wonder if this is Earth change related, maybe shifting Earth, maybe expanding Earth, maybe the new Madrid, maybe, but we're not getting that vibe with these right there. And by the way, 2 arson suspects are being questioned in the Palisades fire. Thousands evacuated. This is over about 20 miles from downtown LA. And, is this marking the start of the fire season? Some say it never ended. So think about this. We had talked about sleepy cells that have been in place for, in some cases, decades. Think about open borders and just how many people can come in and have been piling in again for decades. Who knows what's in store and what's in place? And of course, as we have said before, the countries may, WAR with each other, but of course there's those true puppet masters pulling the strings from above. So the Israeli Air Force and Navy say they've struck Hamas submarine, quote unquote, near the Gaza coast. And this is a unmanned submarine, unmanned vehicle, which we could take as an undersea drone of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. We're into different technology, and some have said, do you foresee the use of like extreme unknown technology in what's coming ahead of us? Meaning, will we see, 2 football field long flying triangles out there with flashes of light doing battle, so to speak? And what do you get?
Within the next 20 years, we're going to be seeing that. We'll have visuals of those in the sky above us. And it's not going to be a big shock anymore, although it can be kind of dangerous at times. But people are going to look up and they'll see that within the next 20 years. And it'll be a common sight. It won't be as common like if there's firing back and forth where anything hits the earth and damages the earth, but we will see what's going on from above.
Think of it in these terms. In the past, like if you look to the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, if you look to these ancient depictions of the wars of the gods, so to speak, which again, they're not gods, they're extraterrestrial, interdimensionals. Some inner earth beings, some that live under the sea, that actually they've been here a long, long, long time. Well, we're going to get to the point where we will see these beings out in the open. And it'll be just like it is in those depictions from so long ago. Again, if we're looking at the time of Krishna is thought to have left in about 3102 BC, about 5,100 years ago. And that marked the beginning of the Kali Yuga, when the good guys kind of left. And all we had was the dark ones here moving forward. And then if we talk to the time of Rama before him, that's about 2,000 years before that. They were used to seeing beings flying overhead, and they knew, well, that's the Asura so-and-so. In other words, the Asuras are basically thought to be kind of demonic, but they're demonic in the sense that they came and would conquer an area, and they would just sit their asses down and rule. Sounds awful lot like what we hear in Sumeria with the Anunnaki.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these were the bad guys, so to speak, that were being fought by the good guys that were here teaching humans how the universe works, how intent can cause the creation of our manifest reality. And the fact that well, for instance, how did they know in the ancient Indus Valley texts the shape of the galaxy, the span of the galaxy, how many humanoid species there were all across the galaxy? They knew these things because we had common knowledge, because there was open interaction with extraterrestrial and interdimensional beings. And no, they're not all demons. Yes, there are demons, but we're not talking all demons. Again, that's a Constantinian King James version of reality, again, which is given to us by the controllers. By the controllers. They don't want you to know that we're in a situation that's actually a lot closer to Star Wars than it is what's portrayed in the Middle Ages.
Right? They want you to believe that you're in a very 3D world. What you see is what you get, and control you through fear, control you through religion, control you through your belief system. And the belief system is one of the biggest and best control mechanisms that there is known, I feel.
Well, exactly. And just like with that left-right dichotomy, if we blame everything on the left, then we fail to see, perhaps, that certain families, like the BUSHs, are also in the secret societies, like we were talking about in yesterday's video, Skull and Bones. Who's at Bohemian Grove? Oh, that's Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon. Well, they're on the right. This is how, if you just blame it on the left, then you're falling into their scheme, because you won't want to look at what's on the right that is perhaps being controlled by the same power brokers. And, of course, we would get a lot more views if we just took a side, if we just took a pro-right only, opinion on things. But it's not our purpose to get views. It's our purpose to reach people, but we're here to uncover the truth and show the manipulation, just how deep it is. So IDF says Islamic Jihad Northern Unit Commander Hassam Abu Harbid killed in airstrike. This is still escalating, and the world is getting very, very sickened by what we're seeing here. Pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian groups violently clashing in demonstrations in Western countries on the streets in New York, Boston, D.C., Chicago, Philadelphia, L.A. It's just, there's atrocities going on. There's atrocities, and again, everything is all about, hey, look, they're united. We can't have that. They've told us this. It's right there. It's in what they've given us. We can't have them united. We got to split them up. We have to get them constantly opposing each other. And again, whose name is all over the Balfour Declaration that brought about the beginning of the restoration of Israel? It's a ROTH shield. One of the most powerful banking families there is. UK and France sent patrol ships to Black Sea as Kiev expects warships. Again, this whole thing, there's still ongoing fighting in Yemen, in the proxy war that's going on, and puts millions, if not tens of millions, at risk of dying of starvation. And it's not just Yemen. Syria's still a mess. Iraq's still a mess. It's all a mess. It's a tangled, never-ending mess given to us by this never-ending war machine. And here you see the fleet positions, and again, a lot of deployments. And there was just a operation that was going on there off the coast of the Aleutian Islands. So that's why you see those two groups there. And the Iwo Jima is up in a very, very northerly position. Interestingly enough, a little bit light on what we see over in Asia. As we've seen, the focus is more on Rus than it is on the fine dining ware with this particular group that apparently in charge. Iron ore prices bounce as Chinese steel output hits record pace. Now, my mother was a historian of sorts, especially when it came to everything World War II. And she could tell you all about Essen, for instance. And Essen was where Germany built so many of their ships in the Essen shipyards. And she was born in Grotten is what she said they grew up calling it, which was, she was there because her dad was career Navy from the time he was 15 till 50s. So he 15, 16, he lied about his age and went in the Navy and basically spent a ton of his life on submarines and helped to build a Nautilus. But Essen was a manufacturing powerhouse, and Germany had a head start with technology for sure. They were way ahead. They developed the rockets before the Allies did. What do you need when you're building a military? You need steel. You need iron ore. This again is showing you where we're heading. China's steel production still continues to expand. It's they're getting ready. They are getting ready, and they are pretty much ready. It's all a matter of when they decide to roll. And again, being well prepared is, again, the art of war and so many other really works of military genius come out of their history. They won't roll prematurely, and they will basically roll only when they're totally ready and their adversary, in quotation marks, is in a position of maximum weakness. Look at what's happening in this country. Look what's start to happen at the end of last year in this country, which is going to elevate again for you that can understand. He who hath ears, let him hear. If you look to tweets being made by 4-5 and others, things are ramping up again internally. We got that there's going to be major events happening internally behind the scenes that you're not going to get official explanations for. But there's so much going on. And as we've said, and I've always seen that the country will go to a place of where it's breaking up. And when it's fully engaged in the breakup, in the divorce, so to speak, of the states, that's when you have to watch for a dragon to pounce, or a bear, or a dragon and a bear. Thoughts?
Well, it is definitely everything you say. This is a time where things are changing, and to really understand how to read between the lines and use your intuition so you truly understand what's going on right now is critical. And we are in a place where the Kundalini is rising, and over these next 10 years, I think that's going to happen to most people. And if we use that energy right, you will be able to read between the lines and have understanding, but no, at the same time, through food and other technologies, that's being suppressed.
Most definitely. So we see a geomagnetic storm watch in effect for May 18th. We see things rising, and there was an article that we talked about earlier about how the magnetosphere must be so weak because the KP index got to 7 with minor storms. And it just hit me now, too, to think about artificial flavoring in some way for that as well. So when we're talking about beings that are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of years, hundreds of thousands of years, maybe even millions of years ahead of us, apparently, technologically, you don't know what that technology could look like. It could be just incredible, really. So we'll see. We're going to have to watch. So there is a chance for isolated. They're calling for G1, which again would be a minor storm. But again, just as we were saying, something's going to look totally organic, and it won't be. It's going to have a lot of artificial GMO activity involved in it. Major damage, worst flooding 11 years in Cuenca in Ecuador. We've seen this. Again, this is all over every single, part of the globe besides Antarctica or the Arctic Circle. And we have an extremely severe cyclonic storm making landfall in India. And this article is about the tsunami danger lurking off the San Diego coast. You know, we were just talking about major tsunami danger off of the San Francisco coast, and we were just talking about that movie, How It Ends, where there's definitely tsunami action going on, but you don't know if it was artificially flavored. And then we've seen, remember we were just talking about these drones, and we're talking about submarines. Yeah, could a device placed in a certain area trigger these faults? And what will we do? Now, this has been something that's hit me as very, very likely.
Yeah, definitely.
So San Diego's coastline is more susceptible to tsunami than previous thought. New report in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America said that strike-slip faults found all along the California coast could cause tsunamis. It was previously thought that only subduction zones like Cascadia created tsunamis. Not the case. So basically, the entire west coast of the U.S. is vulnerable to a tsunami. And then, of course, we have, La Palma over in the Canary Islands, which would make the whole East Coast vulnerable. The whole, and not just for U.S., but South America and Europe and most definitely Africa. So we have 1.6 feet of snow and, of ice, impressive hailstorm on roads that is causing severe damage to crops in Albania. These sneak storms, we've seen massive hailstorms. All this is adding again to the crop losses globally. This perfectly orchestrated symphony of destruction that we see economically and most definitely supply chain. 5 major data sets show global cooling as Carbon Brief is caught lying to the public. Say it ain't so. You mean they're tweaking things for us?
No.
They're not letting us know. Well, Gil Bates wants to go and create more artificial clouds up there because things are getting too hot.
Says he.
Too hot, can't handle it. Well, things are personally getting a little too hot for Gil Bates now.
Oh yeah, it's looking not so good.
No, I think he went to certain islands. It seems like he's had a little extracurricular activity going on there.
Yeah, that's probably not so good.
Newly discovered asteroid 2021 just flew past Earth at 0.17 lunar distance. That's close. And this is in a size group that would be curious because it might make it to the ground if it did, or it could burn up more than likely. And this shows that a 55-hour work week increases your risk of death. So says the United Nations. So don't worry. We're going to have universal basic income for everybody.
Yeah, writing's on the wall. There it is, right there. Here, we're here to help.
Yes. And, we made a video yesterday that got cut in half by the powers that be. And one of the things that we wanted to get across was, you've heard it said that they want everybody to be socialist or they want everybody to be communist. But then some will say, well, no, it's actually techno-corporate fascism. But in reality, it really boils down to slavery. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to the story of the ancient Sumerians when we see the stories of why did the Anunnaki create this version of Homo sapiens. And again, that's the body, that's not the soul, that's not the part that's unable to die, that just basically transmigrates from vehicle to vehicle. Well, they needed a slave race. Mm-hmm. So, there you go. There you go. And it's just, when you look at it, everything keeps coming back to those Sumerian scrolls. And they kind of provide an explanation that definitely seems to fit.
Yep. You mentioned something earlier too, that it's becoming more and more difficult to find any information or photos about that.
Yeah, because there were photos, and I'll have to go into different search engines, but I've noticed that there's a lot of depictions that are getting deleted out, mm-hmm. Especially those ones that show humans with what looks to be slave masters that are twice their size, and the humans have their hands tied behind their back and are on rope chains around the neck.
Yeah, around the neck.
So that depiction seems to be disappearing off the net, and a lot of things are getting scrubbed right now. There's a lot of details and data that are being scrubbed, as we were talking about DEAGEL, and the forecast. Yeah, the website's still up there, but the forecast is not. And the forecast said, it said straight out, the numbers are because of the powers that be as they lose their grip on their ability to control the planet. That's what was stated. Well, you're not going to find that now because they've taken it down.
Right.
Guys, thanks so much for being part of the family. Thumbs up if you enjoyed this. And as always, make sure you're subscribed with the bell clicked. Thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. If you need to set up an appointment, it's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@protonmail.com. And check out evolutionaryenergyarts.com itself. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.